Exciting. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first Make It British live YouTube video. So thank you so much for joining us today. And if you are watching in the past, you've missed out on all the live fun and your opportunity to ask questions of our amazing guests that we've got today. So not doing things by half. When I decided I was going to start doing YouTube live videos, instead of just getting one guest on, I've actually got 3 joining me today. But they're all wonderful people, and they're going to be talking about the most amazing project that they have been collaborating on. So let me bring my guests in. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. How are you all? So good to see you. So we're going to be talking today about a collaboration you've been doing between all 3 of you. Let me first introduce all of you to everyone that's watching. So on my right, or whatever, here first I've got Emma from Socko. She's the founder of Socko, which is an ethical sock brand that is entirely made in the UK and predominantly uses dead stock and recycled yarns. And you also sell you give everyone a free darning kit, don't you, Emma, with every pair of socks that you sell. And you encourage people to do darning, which I love, to extend the life of their socks. And you're also the author of the book, How to Quit Fast Fashion, which teaches people 100 expert tips for a sustainable wardrobe. And Emma, am I right in saying you're based in London and your socks are made in Leicestershire and also Bradford? Is that correct?
That's absolutely spot on, Kate. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for joining me. And then we've got Graham Holbrook. He's the co-founder of Turtle Doves, a British design and manufacturing company that specialises in using post-consumer textile waste, predominantly cashmere, to create beautiful new garments, accessories and homeware. And the business was founded in 2009, and the company's best-selling fingerless cashmere gloves, and I'm always so impressed with this figure, Graham, sold 175,000 pairs just of those gloves last year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Amazing. And you're based in Shropshire?
Yeah.
And last but by no means least, I've got Dr. John Parkinson. He's the founder of iinouiio, a textile recycling company that takes pre- and post-consumer waste, post-consumer wool textiles, is that right? And spins them into new yarns. And he also, I think, wins the award for the most talked about textile business name, because iinouiio, which no one can ever remember how to pronounce, so I hope I haven't got that wrong. And am I right in saying it stands for "It is never over until it's over"?
Until it is over. Perfect.
And you're based in Yorkshire, John?
Correct, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all 3 of you for joining me today. So I first want to talk a little bit about your collaboration. This collaboration you're working on is creating socks from recycled cashmere, which you're providing the cashmere. Graham, is that correct? John is spinning, and then Emma is doing the converting that yarn into socks. So shall I ask you first, how did the collaboration come about? Emma, do you want to kick off?
Sure. Well, I'd been talking with John for a while when he found out that we were working with recycled materials, and he was bringing iinouiio up. Several people, including yourself, Kate, had said, "Oh, you two must chat." So we had a call quite early on, and we didn't really have an idea of how we were going to work together at that stage. But it was very much sort of back of the mind that there would be an opportunity at some point to collaborate on some socks. And this was that very opportunity. And so John got back in touch, having spoken to Graham, and they're working on a range of different products, but they needed some help specifically with the socks. And that's where I came in, and we've taken it from yarn through to finished product. So, yeah.
Fantastic. And then Graham, how is this the first collaboration you've worked on with Turtle Doves with these guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the socks are all selling under the Turtle Doves brand currently. Is that right?
Currently, yes. We've actually sold out, so we're looking forward to our next batch.
And what has been for you the best part about working together as a team, the 3 businesses together?
Well, it's always fun to collaborate with other companies anyway, and I think the fact that John has just come back in, well, over the last year or so, has just come back into the shoddy market or the shoddy industry, and we were one of his first customers working with Emma and Socko, and we've managed to get something completely unique from a jumper top or a recycled jumper up to John, who then pulls it all to pieces, bungs in some British virgin wool, and then comes up with the yarn, and we then give to a sock manufacturer, and then Socko do the marketing and other bits with it, and then get it to market because the socks then come back to us, and then we market it, and they've all sold out. I mean, it's been great. I mean, the other thing to say is that we've been looking for something like this for years and years and years, and we've never been able to find anywhere in the UK where anybody was working with material that could then be ripped apart, put back together again, and turned into a useful yarn. And so it was brilliant to see it from start to finish.
And for you, John, I mean, you I think first contacted me about iinouiio probably 3 years ago now. How long have you been, working on developing recycled yarns?
So yeah, we've been working. We started iinouiio in 2019, but you might remember. I think we maybe spoke when we had the Evergreen business, which was in the early 90s, or at least you heard
Yeah,
about
you were
us.
one of my suppliers back in the day, and I won't go into this right now, but you were one of my suppliers back in the early 90s when I had my first business, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. So it goes back a lot longer. Our experience in the what we call the shoddy trade, which is a much older business in itself, but more recently, iinouiio started in 2019, and it's of course we all know well how things have been a little crazy since then. But nevertheless, we've been able to put in applications for the machinery to do what we want to do. We're just in the process of doing that when I first met Graham. So he's sort of seeing the development of getting those grants into place and then finding somewhere to put it and all the rest of it. And we're finally in a position now where we can start to process Graham's material through our machines, which will allow us to do what we've done already, but even more, because we'll have much more control over the quality of the material and when we get it done.
So you touched on there, and I'm going to have to ask you because I'm not sure how many people that are watching this know what shoddy is, especially if they're not the same age as myself or older. So do you want to explain to everyone, John, exactly what shoddy is?
I'll do my best in a it could be a whole series of episodes. But so shoddy came around in the early 1800s by somebody that had an idea of using pre-loved, although they weren't called pre-loved then, garments, and being able to recover the fibre from them. And the fibre from knitted garments is known as shoddy, tends to be a little bit longer and easier to spin, and the fibres recovered from woven garments are called mungo. That also have their use, but for different applications and used in different ways in spinning and blending.
Shoddy and mungo, they're such great words, aren't they?
They're just, yeah.
So this whole project then is fantastic. You know, when everyone's talking at the moment about the circular economy and how important it is for businesses to not only think about where they're getting their raw materials from, but more so what can be done with those raw materials when the product, the garment, reaches the end of its life. So for you, Emma, why do you think this is so important? Because I know you've built your whole business around, this is such an important part of the Socko business.
Absolutely, Kate. Yeah, it's really interesting for me to work with a diverse range of innovative materials. So the opportunity to work with the beautiful cashmere that's being supplied by turtle doves and having it transformed into something that we can work and run through our machines by John is incredible. And in terms of the circularity of the business, we're all very much about making a product that's made to last. So making sure that it was compatible with our machinery was really important. And in that sense, we were quite particular about certain features within the sock. And then also I've got a sample pair here. Each pair comes with its own little swatch of yarn and a darning needle to promote the idea of reinforcing or repairing rather than throwing away, which is something that's come with every pair of Socko socks since the beginning. So it's really nice to be able to include that as part of the messaging, because the hope is that the socks will last you a lot longer than, say, a pack of 5 that you'd buy for very little money in a high street store. So they're a really special product, and they deserve to be looked after and to have their lives extended as well.
I love the fact that you've got the here's one that I made earlier, Emma. That's
So am I. It's a twin.
You've got a pair as well, have you, Greg? Go on, let's show
Yeah,
us.
exactly the same. Snap.
So do they just come
very
in...
exclusive.
It's got the left, I've got the
But
right.
they've sold out, so they're difficult to get a hold of. So do they just come in that one colour? And I know that as well as the cashmere component, you've also got the British wool component. Why was British wool chosen? So who's best to answer that question about the composition of the socks and the colours? John, go on then, fire away.
I think the main reason for that choice was around the provenance of the wool. It's, people can perhaps get some idea of how beneficial it might be to recycle, but it's sometimes easy then to ignore or not give as much credence to the other materials that are going in there that help to carry the recycled fibres. And so we wanted to use a wool that hadn't been shipped around the world, that would support local farmers in the UK, as well as doing the job for us. We were able to get one just fine enough, and because the wool from overseas tends to be finer, but the British lamb's wool was fine enough to do the job, and so we chose to use that one.
Brilliant. And
it's also a really nice part of the story in terms of us as British brands coming together using British materials, because that's quite novel in a way. Because as John says, you're used to importing a lot of the fibres that you'd usually use in fine knitwear. So it's really great to be able to have the opportunity to have a yarn that works, that's from the UK.
And how does the product actually feel? Because obviously there's a bit of a kind of an urban myth, some would say, that British wool can be itchy. So Graham, you've got a pair in front of you there. How do they feel? How do these feel compared to your traditional socks?
The one thing I can say is that I've been trialing these, and I've got a pair at home that are quite a lot softer than the ones I've got here that haven't been used at all. So when they look and feel sturdy. They feel British, if you like. They look like they're high quality, and they look like they're fit for purpose for a long walks. But one of the things that I found is that the more you wear them, the softer they get.
Yeah,
definitely. All the best socks do.
Definitely. Right. So I think they do lend themselves to sort of outdoor activities. I think if you've come to the Turtle Doves brand expecting Turtle Dove softness, it's got a 60% British wool content, so it's not going to be that level of softness. But as Graham was saying, they do wear really well, and over time they soften with the right care. So yeah, they're a lovely classic pair of socks.
And what is the kind of recycling potential of the socks? So once you're going to encourage people to darn them. Once they're going to have a long life with the current owner. But after that, what are the possibilities of recycling them? Can we send them all back to John for respinning?
I think there are a few things there. I think that great, and a big thanks to all those people that have already bought the stocks, because that allows us to make various different kinds of yarns and different compositions that might make different kinds of socks and appeal to different customers and different users, different kinds of socks. So getting success in the early stages, as with most products, is really important to do that. But in terms of can the socks be recycled again, the quick answer is yes. The answer to nearly every question in textiles is it depends, and it's no different here. But
I love that.
So yes, they could, but best not if it was just on their own. But if they're blended in with some material going for the first time, because then you get the mix of the first recycled and the second recycled. But then it's fine. It would, if we were able to get those back The answer is yes. We could find a way of incorporating them into a blend that would make something else. Might not make another sock, but it would make something else. So it's not the end of the story. We're only limited by our imagination and ingenuity.
Brilliant.
The answers are all there. We just need to keep trying. It's never over until it's over. Yeah.
It's never over until it's over.
Correct,
Fantastic.
Yeah. The big thing for me, and John's much more of an expert than I am, and everything I said I've sort of like picked up from John, but it's all about the fibre and the length and strength of the fibre. So even if a sock has been worn and worn and worn again, and has been, it's got holes all over it, it can still be then sent somewhere back to John, or maybe we could set up our own scheme as well, and then forward it on to John. And John, with his genius, can then combine other fabrics of different lengths, different thicknesses, and because he knows the way that these things work, and we can experiment with his new assets that he's got in his factory, there's no reason at all why you can't take even the most depleted of garments, whether they're socks or hats or jumpers or whatever, and then send them back, and then they can be reborn again.
I think as well to add. Sorry.
Yeah,
I was just going to say that.
In the first instance, I think the Emma's that make and mend is the first stage with all post-consumer garments, and it's only when either Graham's taken the parts that he needs for his products, or there's a jumper with holes in it and red wine spilt down. That's where we come into our own. So for sure, that's kind of philosophically, we're better off when the garment is no longer usable as a garment.
Mm. And I was going to say about the sort of dismantling that you can do with a knitted item like a sock. So all socks have a small nylon component. So to get it back down to just the wool and cashmere, you'd need to separate out the nylon or the elastane that's in the cuff. So John and I had spoken about simply cutting off the cuff and using that for something separate. But then you can actually unravel a sock and separate it into the two fibres again, which with a hand knitting yarn, for example, that's been spun with a nylon, like a sock yarn that's been spun for hand knitting, usually the nylon's integrated, whereas this is plated, so it just sits behind, and we can look to unravel them and have two separate yarns, which makes it a kind of purer thing to then go on. And it's time consuming, and we haven't necessarily found the way of doing that, but actually the dismantling of it and having those raw components in the same way that if you baked a cake, you couldn't then separate out the eggs and the flour and what have you. This is something where you actually can do that, and so the potential to have something that's sort of more pure in terms of keeping your man-made separate from your natural fibre is a really exciting possibility in terms of the circular economy.
Because that's one of the main issues, isn't it, with any textile that you want to recycle, is when when there are several different fibres merged. Like if you've got a poly cotton, you can't separate out the two, can you? So there's still so many challenges, don't you think, with the whole kind of circular economy and how we can make textiles more reusable. And what you guys are doing is brilliant, because you're actually finding a way to make it work. And certainly what John's doing in terms of the opportunities for the UK textile industry with what he can recycle is amazing. And you're the first business of this kind, aren't you, at the moment, John, in the UK? No one else is doing what you're doing at all.
That's right. We were the very first in the world with the evergreen in the early 90s, and now even 30 odd years on, we're still the only business doing specifically just what we're doing in terms of serving the industry and making our own brand, and we're an R&D centre and all that kind of stuff. And the last traditional shoddy manufacturers for respinning closed well over a generation ago in 2000, and so the industry haven't really had that capability in the UK available to them, and they will have now. So as well as making our own brand of things and working in collaborations like this one, we can also work with the other manufacturers in the UK to help them too.
So probably a stupid question, but why did shoddy and mungo disappear in the first place? Because it seems obvious that it's what we should be doing. So what we are saying, John, is we used to do it the right way like 100 years ago or whatever, and now then we stopped doing it. But why did people stop doing shoddy?
It's a really complicated answer, and there's loads of facets to it. But to get it in as tight as I can, generally speaking, people were interested in making money and didn't recognise the benefits of recycling to the environment, or the damage being done to the environment. So that wasn't a consideration until very recently. Mills started to lose out to overseas competition for making textiles, and when you use recycled fibres, you tend to spin heavier yarns. So the more expensive yarns, where the UK manufacturers could get an advantage, tend to be finer yarns, which use less recycled material in them. Plus, fashions changed. Synthetics came in the 60s, and denim became something you could wear not just at work but other places. And one of the big markets for shoddy materials were for making wool blankets that nearly everybody had, and now hardly anybody has, because we've all got polyester duvets. So I could go on forever, but there's a good start at why the shoddy trade disappeared.
Sadly, it was to do with money. Yeah.
Kate, can you get John to talk about Prato?
Prato, you mean in
Prato? Is that how you pronounce it?
This is the Make It British show, and we want to talk about Italy.
Well, we're cheering our friends on in Prato. They do some great work, and they're fabulous with the techniques are different to ours. We're focusing on traditional Yorkshire techniques, as which the heavy woolen district. They do a very similar job to us, but what we're interested in is keeping things local, not moving things around the world, even to Europe, and recycling the UK's waste in the UK, and in the first instance for the UK market, UK designers and stores. So, and that's not so much about being sort of, keeping everything in the UK from a kind of flying the UK flag just for the sake of it, although that's useful too. But from an environmental point of view, that all makes sense as well. So we recognise the work that they do in Prato. We were doing it 100 years before they started, but they're doing it, and we've almost stopped doing it. So there's all sorts of crosses and what have you. They tend to do the finer stuff. And who knows?
But we do the best, John. We produce the best textiles in the world. Certainly, when it comes to wool, I would argue.
We certainly have our own way of doing it. We have some very successful companies, and we want to work with those. But particularly in the case of this, with this collaboration, to take the best of all that and make it successful for turtle doves, which will make it successful for all the people supplying into them.
So where do you see this collaboration going next? I don't think you answered the question. Like, there's one colour of sock. Am I right in saying that so far there's been one colour? So is the next stage to offer more colours or different styles of sock, different yarns? Who's going to take that question?
That's probably John stroke me. We've sent John. We've sent John, I think it's 4 different colorways in terms of, we've put the monochrome jumper tops in loads of bags individually, and then we've put reds and greens, blues in other bags as well. So John can then use those individual discrete colorways to make yarns of those colorways. And at the moment we're working on, I think it's 4. Which hopefully we'll see those in the next 2 to 3, 4 weeks. And so that will then have socks of different colours. We've also got balls of wool of different colours, and also the last part of the project, which again hopefully is only a few weeks away, are throws. So these will be, John probably needs to come in here.
John, fill us in on the throws. Is it a different fibre?
Before we get to throws, one important point that I don't want to miss, and it's easy, is that we get these colourways without doing any additional dyeing. So the people that are working with Graham making his products and keeping the offcuts to one side and in colours helps us then So it's less labour intensive because they're being sorted at site, to producing colours that we can just add white wool. We don't dye the wool because we use the colour of the reclaimed content. So we're not just reclaiming the fibre, we're reclaiming the colour, and that's a really important message and really important point. And then moving up, we've designed the yarn, and we're in stages of always looking at different ways of doing it, but we've designed the one yarn that we've made that will be available probably we think at the end of August, almost certainly early September, for the 4 colours, the blue that's already been made and the 3 others. They'll be available not just for socks, but we made it fine enough for socks, but by folding ends together we can make it heavy enough for the throws, and we can also mix with that some of our recycled post-consumer jumper wool yarns and produce throws that are a combination of those things, but using the same yarn. So you get your socks will coordinate with your throw.
Love it. Well, why not? Bed socks, throws.
Why not? Yeah.
Cushions next as well.
Just blend into your sofa, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I think that's really good what you said about there's no dyeing, because everyone knows in the textile industry it's the dyeing and the washing and anything that involves the water that is the. I mean, Emma, you probably know a lot about that, don't you? In terms of that's something that I know that's close to your heart.
Absolutely, yeah. I think being able to work with yarns that haven't been dyed, haven't needed to be dyed is definitely preferable. Like I say, when it comes to the man-made fibres, that's when we need to look at ways in which we do involve dyeing just to match it. But yeah, it's looking at eco ways to do that in a way that's not too intensive in terms of water use or chemicals, and finding a way to make it work. So really, this very first range was a proof of concept. We haven't gone too crazy with design. We really wanted to just make sure that we've got a really classic, great pair of socks, and that we can that would run through our machines, because of course there's a lot that goes into there's been a lot of conversations before we ended up with a pair of socks in our hands. So
where are the socks? And where are the socks actually made, Emma? I don't think we've even covered that. I mean, obviously, assuming they are the UK, and I know that for a fact. But can you tell us a little bit more about the manufacturing side?
Yeah, absolutely. So this range was made by Mark and his team up in Bradford, and Mark's got some fantastic Italian machines, which are very sort of state of the art new machines, which have an inbuilt linking process. And what that means is that the toe seam doesn't have that ridge that sometimes a toe seam has, which can be a little bit uncomfortable, especially if it's a walking sock. You might feel it in your boot. So it's a technique that used to be done by hand, but there are maybe a handful of sock hand linkers left in the UK, and the price, of course, of labour is substantially more than it used to be when hand linking was the only option. So actually working with Mark and his team to be able to make these socks was really the most obvious way to go. But I do work with other UK manufacturers as well.
Do you know, Emma, we've not put that on our website. I didn't know, and I missed it, that what you've just said about Mark and his team and what they do with the machinery. So nothing on our website talks about the socks being brilliant for walking, because you don't have the usual chafing at the toes, which funny enough was exactly the way how we got into the project in the first place, because everything we do is on an overlocker or a flatbed, and everything you wear doesn't have any of those pinch points, except for socks. And we couldn't make the socks that didn't have those pinch points. Hence the reason we went to John and to you, Emma. So that's a really good, I didn't know that. So we'll change that on our website later on today.
And you've sold
great. Well, have a little look at the Socko website as well, which redirects to the Turtle Doves website, because all the information is on there as well.
I was going to say, if anyone watching this wants to get in touch, or listening to this as well, wants to get in touch with any of you, where's the best place to find you? So Emma, do you want to start first? Where's the best place for people to find you?
Sure. So our website is Socko, that's sock with an O on the end, .shop. So www.socko.shop. And we're also on all the big social medias at Socko Shop, all one word.
And Graham, Turtle Doves, which is the website where people can find the socks that's where they can actually purchase the socks. Is that correct?
Yeah. www.turtle-doves.co.uk.
Brilliant. And John, they've got to spell iinouiio right for a start, haven't they? You need to be able
if they get if they get anywhere close, there's nobody else that even anywhere.
I was about to say, what happens in
there's a
Google
good reason
search?
for that, John.
There is, but it's talking. You know, it's like the old Oscar Wilde thing that I keep saying. There's only one thing worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked about. But anyway, if you remember the long form of "it is never over until it is over," you'll get it. But if you're anywhere near www.iinouiio.com, will get you there. Recycled wool, Yorkshire, lots of things, a Google search, they'll get it to us. And we haven't changed, we haven't upgraded the website. We've had some changes since we moved into manufacturing, and the website is still a little bit like the old website, but that's where we are. And there's loads of stuff to read, history and all that stuff.
Brilliant. Absolutely love it. And we've got, before we go, because of course we are live and we've got people here watching, and I'm going to test out here to see if I can bring in, well, firstly, look, Emily is very kindly, there is Emma's, there's Emma's website. There's the Turtle Doves one there. Thank you, Emily, on the Make It British team. And there is John's as well. And we've got a few Make It British members here. It's really good to see Stephen Reeds. Really good to see you, Stephen. And also, who else have I got here as well? I've got Karen from Minicled. Hello, Karen. Michelle on the Make It British team says, it's so exciting to hear about this collaboration. Fantastic to hear that cashmere is being made, recycled in the UK. So if anyone has a question for any of it, because that's the advantage of doing a live interview, isn't it? So if anyone has a question for anyone here that's on the panel, then please do. And I will see if I can bring the question up. Yes, we have. Karen's got a question for John. John, do you do cotton?
Yeah. Not this time around. We did recycle cotton before. It's possible to do it. There are all sorts of reasons. Once again, I'll try and keep it as succinct as possible. When you're recycling textiles, it's quite labour intensive, as we talked about. When you're doing it in Britain and you're doing it with all the right factory regulations and looking after your people and all that kind of stuff, it's expensive unless you're really high volume, and there isn't a market yet. Our heritage and knowledge is with recycling wool and cashmere. So, and also the time it takes, the processing costs are about the same if you're doing cotton poly as if you were doing cashmere, and there's a lot of difference in what the product's worth at the end of the day. So just the logistics, just that, starting off with to try and create a new market or to enter a market that says it wants this stuff but isn't yet buying it in the UK because nobody's making it apart from us. That was the right thing to do. Plus it's what we knew best. And yes, you can buy a machine that will do everything pretty much, but you're buying one of the machines out of Europe that start on the smallest one at like £1 million just for the machine before you put it in. Before you're going to run out of money.
Wow.
So we bought a smaller machine that would do specialist stuff. It's a British machine too. And the people that have been going since 18, they haven't made one for 30 years. They've gone into making farming equipment. But I used to buy machines off them back in the day. I said, can you make me one of them old machines? And yeah, we can make it. And so we're doing it the old way, and it's specialist for wool. And that's the market where we want to start. It's a fibre type that we feel more comfortable in defending as well, because people think cotton's great, it's natural, but 50% of all the pesticides used in the world go on cotton. It's complicated. But so wool is where we're comfortable. Wool and cashmere is where we're comfortable with starting. But all the other feedstocks are possible. There just needs to be the market, and it needs to build. And back to that. Ironically, it all used to be here too. And there aren't any, the cotton spinners aren't here if it went back onto the cotton system. But mostly that would be the open rotor end system. There aren't rotor spinners here that deal with short fibre. On the woolen system, I'm getting technical. On the woolen system, that's where you use recycled fibres. So you can't just put anything on different systems of spinning as well. So it's complicated. like every answer, it depends, you know.
Does that help answer your question? I hope that helped answer Karen's question there about does John do cotton? And for some reason, I can't get I've got all these comments flying across my screen now. I'm going comment crazy. But yeah, John, I think that's a really good point you made about it's the value of the yarn that you spin at the end. It's got to be worth doing, hasn't it, basically? And it's worth starting with cashmere and wool rather than cotton for so many different reasons, particularly as the wool industry in the UK is still very buoyant and the cotton is less so. So yeah, Karen says thank you, John. Look, there's another comment whizzing on my screen. Finally then, if we've not got any more questions,
I've got one.
Oh, you've got a question yourself, Graham. Then go on, fire away.
I'm not going to question myself. I'm going to question John. I'll get more sense out of him, frankly. What's going forward? Because if you think about, there's loads and loads of British retailers, and they will get lots of returns. And they will get lots of, most of them manufacture overseas, or some might manufacture in this country. Are you deliberately taking it step by step before you actively contact those retailers, just because you're trying to get your thing back up, up and running for the first time? Or are you finding that actually whatever you said to them is falling on deaf ears, because potentially what you've got there could be fantastic for their recycling credentials?
Yeah, it's pretty much, it's more the former. We've reached out to some of the mills as a starting point, and we've talked to one or two people that are sort of closest to the retail side. But yeah, deliberately, because if we wouldn't be able to manage what we think is the potential of the market all at one go, and so deliberately we're both for the textile recycling for apparel and fashion, as well as interior furnishings and transport, and we need to manage what we think will be more than we can cope with if we went to the whole market all at one go. But we want to look after the people that looked after us in the early days. So since you were one of our first, if not our first love, Graham, we're going to continue to look after turtle doves wherever else.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's great when small brands all work together and support each other and collaborate together. And myself as well, everyone knows I'm quite cynical now about some of the big retailers, and because my background is working for those big retailers, and how they maybe don't work with their customers and their suppliers in quite the same way that you guys do as smaller businesses, because you value your supply chain so much, whereas it's a bit here today and gone tomorrow with a lot of those big retailers, isn't it? They'll no sooner kind of work with you and then push you under the bus and find the next person. And I'm going on record saying this because that's why I do what I do now, is to support guys like you. And I think it's great that you're all working together and doing this. So the more of these sorts of collaborations, the better, I think.
Definitely.
The industry's got
a really
support.
big opportunity.
Yes. So thank you so much. I think now you've answered all my questions. We haven't got any more questions from people watching, but it's been really, really good seeing you all today and hearing you all talking about this collaboration. So I want to say thanks once again, all of you, for joining me. And there you go. That is the link there on the screen for how people can get hold of a pair of the socks, except you said they've sold out, didn't you, Graham?
You can still get hold of the men's or the very large the socks, the normal women's sizes. They sold out literally within a couple of days of us putting them on the market.
How many did you make? Not enough, obviously, is the answer to that one.
We made 500 pairs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and they sold out how quickly?
Within a couple of days.
Wow.
And we launched on the hottest day of the year.
And it's Christmas coming up. So how many are you going to be making in the next batch?
Go on, John. Go on. Suck it to him.
In terms of the yarn, we've processed about 800, nearly a ton of yarn, anyway, 800 kilos of yarn. and that'll make a lot of socks. Emma will do the math on the socks, on how many socks, but that'll make a real lot of socks. So I think in those 4 colours for the, once we get them onto the market, and the yarn will be available at the end of August. So I'm sure there'll be a big push to make sure that they're ready long before the Christmas season starts.
Brilliant.
Without doubt.
Perfect gift for Christmas for everyone. You need to start placing your orders now.
Do you want to know what the price is? At the moment, we're selling them at, I think it's £18 or £30 for a pair, for 2 pairs.
Okay, brilliant. That's a good price, because that's the same price as your other socks, isn't it? Is that? I mean,
Yeah.
No. Oh, sorry. You
sorry.
And I think it's important to see that it's not an apples for apples comparison, because it's very bespoke and niche and specialised, and there's a heck of a lot of investment gone into the recycling of what we do, and it's not in volume, so it is a very sort of a special product. And if you compare them to somebody that's like banging out thousands of pairs in any old yarn from wherever, it's not a fair comparison, and that's not always easy to get across, but nevertheless it's an important point.
Well, the customers of Turtle Doves and Socko obviously do understand that, because look how quickly they sold out. So they're obviously an amazing product, and I know they are. So thank you, Emma, Graham and John. You've been absolute stars joining me today, especially as it was the first YouTube live video that we've done. This has been recorded, so I am also going to be putting this out on the Make It British podcast. If you want to listen back. So thank you, you guys. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me today, and everyone watching in. And I will be back. Hopefully, we're going to make this a regular thing every Tuesday at 1 p.m. So if you've got ideas for anyone you'd like to see as a guest on this live show, then, or you yourself would like to be a guest, then please let me know. And thank you to Emma, Graham and John for being my first guests. Bye, everyone.
Thanks very much, Kate.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.